Somebody would like to do this? Okay, so I want to do an exercise. I just want to kind of go around. I want everybody to give me their impression of that song. We'll start here. Is that okay?
Yeah, honestly, I hadn't listened to Lil Wayne in a while. Like, I wasn't even like accustomed to hearing the voice again. It struck me very much as like that mid 2000s like Lil Wayne era rap. I'm talking about like really just like living up big in the club and being successful, but having your haters no matter what, whether it's other people or like the institutional hate that they receive.
Okay.
I was more paying more to like the beginning before like the song happened because it was talking about like Hurricane Katrina. But then at the same time, like I think it was hard for me to hear the lyrics, just because like I forgot like how Lil Wayne was also like using a lot of autotune as well.
Using a lot of what?
Of autotune.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard for you to hear the lyrics.
What did you think about, so you couldn't hear, but you could see, what are your thoughts on what you saw?
How it like contradicts like that situation to like how like the music video itself. The entire mood of it is just very like elevated, as what Keelan said. But like the beginning kind of doesn't seem like that. Yeah.
I didn't understand that. Can you clarify?
Huh?
I didn't understand what you said. Can you clarify?
That like I thought there was a big or like not contradiction, but like juxtaposition between like the beginning of how he was kind of briefly talking about Hurricane Katrina, and then like throughout the music video was kind of like what Keelan said about like living it up, kind of like I don't know how. Yeah.
Like the contrast between the lyrics and the video, or the video itself was like living it up?
The video itself. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Can you pose the question again?
What do you think about the song? What are your thoughts about the song that you heard?
It reminded me of high school. I used to actually listen to Lil Wayne when I was younger. This was like, I want to say like the Carter 3. He was like kind of preparing as he was about to go to prison. And like right after Katrina, he filmed like back-to-back videos. So like this video was like the middle of like 3 or 4 videos. So it just kind of took me back into that mindset of his earlier work.
Question, you said you listened to him in high school. Why did you stop?
Just the quality of music changed a lot for me. Whereas like in this video, or around the mixtapes coming up to this album, he was more advocating for things and, you know, meeting with the right people and actually creating some type of change. Whereas after a while, after he made that $100 million and after he got out and like Drake kind of took off for him, he kind of took a step back, and now I feel like the music isn't as potent and strong.
Yeah, I want to say like I kind of felt like 2 things going on. So one, I felt like hope in this redistribution of wealth. I got this sense of like Robin Hood, right? Like take from the rich, give to the poor. They going through the hood, spreading this money. But I also kind of got this sense too that there was this other message, which is like very much part of this commodified hip hop culture, which is like the commodification of women and like, you know, glamorization of things. So I kind of seen two things going on there.
I think you just said.
I pretty much got sort of the same impression. In what I noticed most was like how strongly like money was emphasized as like a status, as like a symbol of status, and like how it seemed to imply that a rise to the top was necessitated by money. And also what also struck me was just, you know, the sexualization of all of the women in the music video. Yeah, I felt like from the and the whole money, a lot of emphasis on like the chains and the girls, jewelry and stuff, as well as the like sexualization of women and the dance moves and stuff they were doing. Yeah, similar. I think at the beginning, the record came Katrina, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be like Where's the Love? And Black Eyed Peas, and it just wasn't. I had never heard the song before. It was like super upbeat, so I was like, oh, I'm a little confused. And then it was like the lights and like the bank scene, and I was like, I'm a little confused. But then, yeah, when they're in the back of like that like truck and they're like throwing out the money and like people are picking it up, I was like, oh, okay, I can see like a connection here to like what was happening. Because at first I was like, why did they bring up that whole Katrina thing? What the heck is going on here? But then I sort of like got it as it was going on.
This was my first time seeing this music video, surprisingly to my own self. I had heard the song like a lot of times in a lot of different places, and like I've heard Lil Wayne like mention different social issues in his music before, so like that wasn't surprising to me to see him bring up Katrina in the video. But it definitely like gave me a different definition or perspective of the lyrics of the song. Like, got money, you know it. I think at the time, like listening to the song, I wasn't really thinking about it in like a large context, but it's super true. Like the government, the man, whatever, the powers that be, right? They're always like, we don't have money to help these issues, we don't have money for these things, but we're constantly finding money for like going to war and all this other shit that arguably doesn't matter.
Quick question. So you're familiar with the song, but not familiar with the video. Tell me what your impressions were of the song before you saw the video.
I thought the song was about like hustling straight up, just like how can I make the most money possible, like for personal enjoyment, I guess more so than how can we as a community make money to help our problems or get money to help our problems.
I gotta say, like, what did you like about the song? If you liked anything about it.
I liked that the song was, it's like, I'm someone that I focus more sonically on what's happening rather than like words that are happening in the song. So I think like all the times that I've heard it, the only words that really stuck with me is like, got money, right? And then the song is super upbeat to me, so in my mind it's like a powerful, like encouraging, like party song, I guess, so to speak.
Thank you.
When I first watched the video just now, like my first thoughts was like, oh my god, classic early 2000s music video. I love it. T-Pain still wearing his top hat. Like, it's so different now. But I guess younger, I feel like Lil Wayne for our generation is really big. Like he's just such a huge figure. I don't know if it's the same in the West Coast, but for sure, like wherever Lil Wayne's like God. And I was kind of disappointed that I hadn't really dissected the song until I'm in a classroom watching it and asked to do that. So I'm pretty much in line with everything Raina was saying. Like normally the message, like which isn't like a lot of songs, I just associate it with money and not the reason of like why the money is that important. And it's just like this away, that away, like everything hangs on there. It's just like an upbeat song. Like I think also sonically, I was just like, okay, yeah, great song, banger, remember it, awesome. But I hadn't paid attention to the context before now, and also like in the storyline of the video, kind of which appears in a lot of videos, but I was just interested to see the beginning and the ending and like what prompted what happened in the video, and like that contrast between having all this money and like what pushed them to have to go to these meetings to get that money and redistributing it. But it also didn't like makes it like why was Nicki Minaj in there, like but I don't know, but like like Tyga's there, like why is she in there? But it's like also like you have to sell it, right? You have to sell your song, sell your music and sell your videos, it's like, I unfortunately, and especially being such a huge icon, I mean, Mr. Carter was so big, but it's hard to balance needing to be popular and like sincerity of message. It's like, how you, at one point you have to sell it, the other point it's like, what's it, I don't know. But then there's a lot going on in the video.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Selling and sincerity of message, I heard you bring those two things up. Does it need to have a sincere message?
No, I don't think, I mean, to some people, maybe.
Tell me about the some people.
I don't know. I feel like I don't always listen to music, or, which maybe I should change, but I feel like, unfortunately, I think they can both go hand in hand together, and that's like also, I think, something that's happening now more so, but I also am big for, I enjoy music that that doesn't necessarily have a message. Like, I still enjoy music that doesn't necessarily have a message. And I don't think that's wrong, if it doesn't have one. And I also don't think that it can't sell if it does. But I know, like, to the masses, historically, like, to the masses, music is more just like, what's catchy, I guess, and, yeah.
I'm gonna make a note to myself, so I want to come back to this. But what you're touching on there is something that is like real. We all know it. We've all seen it. We've had conversations about it. I certainly had my years of apologizing for Lil Wayne and listening to Lil Wayne.
Yeah.
But this idea that the value of the rap or rap music is somehow related proportionally somehow to like it's positive messaging, or it's lack of chauvinism, or it's lack of like objectification. Like like all of these things that are problematic about urban rap, we somehow try to like balance. We're always in a conversation of trying to balance something else against it. Like, oh, but he's talking about something positive, or he's redistributing wealth. I just want you to hold that idea in your head. We'll be back. We'll come back to that. Yeah.
When I saw the title, I was like, oh, I guarantee I know this song, but it's not coming to me. And I did, and it's like, it's like, that's like, I was in elementary school when that came out.
Yeah.
And to me, this song was just like, it was like Lil Wayne, and I guess hip hop and rap in general of that time to me, because of my age, it was something that I listened to because I knew like my parents wouldn't be okay with it, or I knew that people weren't, even like if they weren't your parents, like it was very much the type of music that it had swearing in it, it had objectification of women in the videos, and had all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of people try and shield you from that. And so watching this video and hearing about Katrina in the beginning, or even at the end when he was arrested, and he pretty much said, I knew I was going to be arrested. I think I spoke a lot to him as like in his community, the struggles that he went through, and kind of like what Sadie was saying about how like the lengths that he had to go to in order to like make a statement and make a change. I think a lot of it's just about making a statement. With all the money and the girls, all the famous people in the video, even though they weren't that famous at that time, but they got famous. I think it's all about making a statement, and I think it's an outrageous thing. I think that it's, like we don't really like, now we realize that like, oh, objectification of women like that is not really the best thing, but I think it really is just in like calling attention to this and making like that wow factor. And then maybe perhaps someone will like listen to the song and think, oh, maybe this actually means like giving money to the less fortunate or something. Like in the back of their mind. But yeah.
I hadn't heard about Lil Wayne until about a week ago. Right? So
Welcome.
So, and then I think when they say year 2000, I said, okay, what were you doing 20 years ago? I go, oh yeah, I know what I was doing 20 years ago. It wasn't very nice. But what I got from the video was they showed banks A bank. Okay, so, and then they should say deposit box. That's unregistered wealth. That's what the 1% keep their money in. Safe deposit box. It's not registered, it doesn't exist, but it's there. And I looked at that and then talked about Katrina and how they couldn't get money and they're still rebuilding today, 20 years later, because the wealthy refused to help them. That includes the governments refused to help. And after World War II, one bank came up called the World Bank. It controls all the other banks in the world. And that's where all the rich people, the 1%, have their money in that bank. And so, to me, and he's giving the money away, and then you show the armored car, and my mind clicks to the Brinks job, greatest robbery that ever existed in America, on American soil. They never found the money, right? But everybody died except for 2 guys,
Yeah.
right? And they got out and they still never found the money. Those 2 guys are probably wealthy somewhere. But giving that money away to help people of diversity, maybe helping people in prison, he talks that doing this, he knows he's going to go to prison. So going against the status quo, which you were talking about, you know you're going to end up in prison. And he accepted that this is where I'm going to end up. That's why I think that.
I just have a question. Do we know anything about like who directed the video or like created it?
Good question.
I wonder if that
Yeah,
Google.
So this director is also a
thing,
part of
you know
Young
what I'm
Money.
saying?
That is not a part of my lesson, but we can figure it out.
No, I just seen him the other day on, what's that, the Mask? The singers in the Mask?
Mass singer.
Yeah, he just came, he was one of the Mask singers.
T-Pain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they talked about
He
it.
has a beautiful voice.
He has a beautiful voice.
Yeah, they didn't know who he was.
It's super
He
solid.
danced all around it. And then when he unmasked himself, they showed who he was.
I'm gonna
And
say
they were shocked.
Wikipedia gives it to us.
It's like, I don't know how much power artists have over their, I guess it depends over their video.
Yeah, like
or something
secretly
that.
just being like, oh, bad bitches.
The producers is T-Pain.
Oh,
Who's
by
the-
Gil
who's
Green.
that?
Gil Green?
Producers trying to make money.
Video is directed by Gil Green.
Oh, thank you.
Under music video.
Wow.
Who's not saying?
So Gil Green, I don't know who that is. But okay, so, all right. One, I'm gonna be accountable right now, right? I kind of set you up with the video, which is super distracting and it's like not as fair to you, but I think I want to make a point, so I want to make sure I make it. So there's like a dozen of you in here, and none of you said anything about poetry, and we are like in an arts class, right?
Yeah.
So what is it? Let's explore that a little bit, right? Like we're looking at a rap video. I asked you, what do you think of the song? It is a rap song, so predominantly and like by and large, it's a work of poetry, but no one approached it like a work of poetry. Why is that?
He was telling a story. So yeah, that's a line of reason.
Yeah. But no one approaches it as a work of poetry.
Everybody's looking at it for the political statement. Which poetry does.
Mhm.
Makes political statements a lot.
Yeah.
I know I just like jumped in here, but as you all were discussing, I was kind of observing and thinking about that song because I have listened to Lil Wayne for a long time, and I think of him to be one of the greatest lyricists, like of all rappers. And I think a lot about like his song with Eminem. It's No Love. It's like a cover, but he says like, throw dirt on me and grow a wildflower, and it's fuck the world to get a child out of her. Yeah, my life's a bitch, but you don't know anything about her. And it just keeps going. And like when I think of his poetry, I think about that song a lot. And I was thinking about this song, and I was like, holy shit! Like there's a lot of really real things he says. But I haven't seen the video in so long, so I didn't want to just jump in though because I know I just got.
That's so
But
good.
yeah, I really appreciate his lyrics.
So when we talk about narratives and how they reproduce what they reproduce, earlier I said, like, you'll never find a Chinese restaurant on the same page as an Italian restaurant in the reviews section. Like, why is that? Like, I mean, if you let print tell it, there's no such thing as gourmet Chinese food. It is the most populous nation on the planet, and apparently they don't have gourmet food, right? Because you've never seen the United States of America, anywhere. But certainly they have gourmet food, right? But Italian, you just put the name, you just put an Italian name on the damn shop. It's like it's gourmet food, it's Italian. Why is that?
Because when the Italians first started coming to this country, they were not very looked at favorably, and but they changed the way people looked at them and became more, I guess you say, Americanized. They became more looking like Americans, and so they got people to accept them, and so now their food is gourmet. I'm from New York. I grew up in New York, and I'm part Sicilian. Or as my grandfather says, I'm Sicilian because I got one drop of Sicilian blood. But Sicilian food and Italian food is almost the same, but like you said, you'll never see a Sicilian restaurant on the same page as an Italian restaurant. It won't be classified as gourmet because it's Sicilian. Because Sicilian has got a lot of African spices mixed in, right? And that goes to the white supremacist thing you were talking about earlier.
That's exactly it. Go ahead. I see you got
Just to
words.
add on that, I was reading some stuff on like how like Jewish Americans were initiated into like the perception of them being white, and like in the post like World War II, how there was like there was a camp, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was a campaign to expand the definition of what whiteness was in America, beginning to include like light-skinned Semitic, Ashkenazi, light-skinned Ashkenazi Jews, Italians, Polish people, and other people, and Irish people, to further kind of like divide the lower class people against like, yes, you're white, so you don't, trying to put marginalized groups opposing to one another.
So building on that point, you were saying your parents, one of the reasons you listen to it is like your parents would not be okay with it, right? Can I ask why they weren't okay with it? I mean, it's obvious why, but can you tell me why they would not be okay with it? And why so many parents across America wouldn't be okay with their children listening to Lil Wayne?
They probably thought that it was radical compared to what a 9-year-old should be thinking. Not really listening to, but like when you listen to something and you take that in and you listen to their words, mostly like the swearing and stuff, but also like, I don't know if my parents are out here thinking like, oh, we can't have her knowing about the injustices against black people. You know?
I doubt that was the reason. I think it had more to do with the cursing.
Yeah.
I think it had more to do with the messaging. But again, whose culture has value? So like, this isn't just your parents. This is like all of us. This is including me. This is like, this is the world of the United States as we've been acculturated. Like this thing that, this cursing and vulgarity, and this thing is seen as like this very bad thing that is like, brings like out these very intense emotions in people. I remember when I was a kid, they were trying to ban this rap group called 2 Live Crew.
Yeah.
They were like they were literally on the Senate floor trying to ban 2 Live Crew. I remember the Ghetto Boys, like, oh man, I wish I had time. We could just do so many workshops on like rap songs, right? They had this song called like Dies. It's amazing. But like, there's been movements that like this vulgarity and this violence and these curse words, right? Like they're a threat, right? I'm sure these parents would have a problem about their children talking about Abraham Lincoln. I'm pretty sure Abraham Lincoln was a stone cold racist who hurt more people than everyone I've ever met. And I was in a gang. Why is that? Like you might say that, like, oh, well, this provokes like violence in like inner cities and like gang violence and like, how can a society, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just thinking like,
of all the different things people say that rap music promotes in order to write it off, but in reality it's just very deeply linked to Black culture, and that's kind of, I think, why maybe a lot of people kind of write it off as like that is too much and it shouldn't be allowed in what we define as normal and what the dominant culture defines as like acceptable, like not too loud, not too crazy, not too, like you must stay very, like a very like Protestant idea of how to act, like very like from the framers' constitution of like no dancing, like very much like in this like Calvinism, like back in the day, just like you must stay orderly and quiet and calm, and you are not to act out, and people who act out are wrong and dumber than us and stupid and bad, and kind of just from like that perspective of like, yes, it's all kind of trickled down into, oh, now rap music is loud and bad and it's associated with Black people. No, oh, something that's like pop and light and bright and white, great. And I just kind of like,
So like a WASP point of view, like Anglo-Saxon Protestant,
yeah.
like a WASP point of view.
Real quick, this person has a hand up and
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, because like I said, I'm Sicilian and I'm Irish, and both sides of my family are Catholic. So even in prison, when guys told me, oh yeah, you're Irish, you're white. No, I'm not. You're an Anglo-Saxon Protestant. My ancestors fought against you and still fighting against you today. You get out of Ireland. So that's part of my classes in prison were based on how I grew up in New York City. I grew up in the Bronx. And the Bronx is a very different racial, cultural area. And everybody gets along in the Bronx, because the Bronx is like a bunch of little towns in one area, right? And so in this area, it's all Sicilian. But as soon as you step out of that, it could be the Dominican, it could be Black, it could be Cuban. Even the Hispanic community is divided into little groups. And so when I came to California, I was like shocked. Like,
I can imagine. I know.
What is that?
Everybody I know is not from California. They go to a California prison. They're like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, when I came down here, I came to Frisco. A friend of mine invited me to come to Oakland and live. I lived in West Oakland in the Bottoms. One of my best friends in prison, his name is Bo. People call him Johnny Boy. Right? And so I lived in a very Black community. I was one of the only two, according to what everybody else says, white guys living there. But the two of us that were living there, he's from Chicago, I'm from New York. So we look at things totally different, right? And so I think that's to my advantage, the way my grandfather raised me. To not look at anybody for the color of their skin, because a man's heart tells you all about it. Because how he acts and how he thinks will come out, no matter what color he is. I think that has to do with my Sicilian blood, my grandfather's upbringing.
Are you good? Are you?
I mean, I don't know if it's gonna add to the conversation, but
Yes. Good time.
going back into the, in how like what we value, what sounds or language we value. I think what comes with power is the power to define, which is like that's so pervasive. And I've been on this thing lately that I've been holding with me. I was talking to you about that, my whole thing of like what is accepted knowledge and what's not accepted knowledge, and that goes into art. What is accepted art? What is accepted movement? What deserves to be on a stage, presented and paid tickets for? What doesn't? And so like even going back in the history of music, it was totally whitewashed. This was music made by Black people, but too sexual and vulgar from this definition, and just totally put on with like a white voice and a white aesthetic, and sold and profited off of. So it's just what is like all of these connotations, back to the power of like connotation, has been, those connotations are not a collective agreement of like what we associate with what. That is from like the white supremacist power to define this with this in efforts to subordinate.
That makes a lot, I wanted to ask your name again, please, one more time.
Sadie.
Sadie.
And
I really want to come back to that. I really want to come back to that. I'm very happy you said that. Go ahead.
I think it's a lot about stigmas and just a lot of things. Going kind of off of what Calista said, you know, when I was younger, I mean, I had a really intense appreciation for lyrics and hip hop from a younger age, and then every time I would be in my grandparents' car or in their house, who they are traditionally Israeli, like very Israeli people, and I would want to play hip hop or rap, they would be like, oh, who played that around you? Like, why are you listening to that? Like, oh, your dad showed you that? My dad is African American. And there was just like a lot of subtle racism happening, and then I would always, you know, explain like, you know, this is my culture too. And it was just always so weird to me because, like, they're from Israel, you know, like like what Bex was saying, like Israelis coming into America, like the Jewish experience coming in here, like they're Ashkenazi Jews, they're light skinned, they came in here with not, it was easily adaptable, they didn't have a lot of problems coming here. And then like growing up, it was just always a huge battle to be like, this is my culture too, and like it's so weird to me that you don't accept it, you don't accept my dad for who he is, you don't accept my culture, because like, you're a minority too, you know, 23 years later, they're still kind of about things, but like, they love me and they know who I am, and, like, you know? It's just kind of crazy to me that minority groups just, sometimes they just battle against each other when you should all just, you know, we all struggle differently.
Might I offer that with respect, it's not crazy, it's it's very much a function of white supremacy. It's very much the design of white supremacy, hierarchies in general. And that is the path of least resistance for most human beings. That's why the system perpetuates itself and it works, right? So I get what you say when you like, it's crazy. And it's crazy in that, like, it's nonsensical. It's crazy in that, like, race is like something that was literally created by Protestants, right? Around the time of the colonization of America, right? Like, it was literally created. But bullets are created too, and they kill you all the same, right? So it's like a fictional thing, but it has a real impact. So on those grounds, yeah, I understand the feeling like it's so crazy that so much suffering in this world comes from literally nothing. But also, it's a very, like, people are behaving very rationally. Like, and that's what can be so damaging and scary about it. Because it does come from a very rational place. It comes from a very traumatized place. Like you said, your people are from Israel. Like, God damn the trauma of, like, Jewish people in Europe, right? It comes from, like, and people heal in different ways and they survive different ways, right? The criminal justice system today is like often built on criminalizing the way people have adapted to like extreme trauma, and it's another thing about like, you know, whose culture has like the capital, right? You know, Israel right now is like as part of their historical legacy of trauma is basically oppressing Palestine, right? And like, we can agree or we can disagree with it, and if we disagree with it, we can disagree with it, and we're still kind of like, I get what's going on. I don't agree with it, but I get what's going on. But never is the case where like a young 16-year-old black dude like blows someone's brain out, and we look at that and be like, yeah, but I get what's going on, even though it's the same thing going on, right? So yeah, very rational, but yeah, feels crazy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm grandfathered into rap, probably one of the oldest hip hop heads in the room, 53, but and I do remember when Sugar Hill came out, but I want to talk about this change and just maybe just put this in the room, like gangster rap was attributed to California, you know, NWA, and it was like the medium or the standard of what it took to be a rapper actually started changing with the creation of gangster rap, in my opinion, because now it became about, you had to be real. You had to be a legitimate rapper. You couldn't just be artistically rapping. You had to really go to the pen, really pack guns, really get shot, really shoot people. And if you weren't studio gangster. You know, and it's interesting because I didn't really sense or feel that before that. And I don't know if it was so much of that group or if it was more about the industry around the group. And like you said, the narrative that was being created behind the scenes. But I do remember.
Well, I mean, I would say that like I'm from California, right? I remember when NWA came out, right? It came out at a very inopportune time in my life. But I'll say this, I remember like getting older, like being in prison and being in my 30s and meeting people from the East Coast and realizing that there was just a lot more political education on the East Coast than there was on the West Coast. The West Coast was the home of the Black Panthers who've been eviscerated by the FBI and the federal government. Fucking eviscerated, right? People on the West Coast, like, were a lot further away from politicalization than people on the East Coast, right? And I remember feeling like very like sad at that, like, man, fuck, I'd have had a whole different life if I would have grown up on the East Coast. Right? Because the things that I discovered later was like, oh man, what the fuck? I discovered them in prison, right? It was too late, right? So I think that had a lot to do with it. I think NWA was like expressing some legitimate shit, but I think they were also expressing it from a deeply traumatized place. And I think that it's easy to like blame like that genre of music for a thing in which they were like the least powerful component, right? Like to not blame, to legitimately, like what we're basically asking when we blame them is like, man, you know what? You should have been like your own therapist. And you should have like been able to process this better and then make music that was like more conscious and that could like change the world. It's like, that's ridiculous, right? And then an industry like capitalized on that and they commodified their black skin and they sold it. And that is like, that's a whole other class. But yeah, so I guess back to your point, I want to come back to this point about that one of these points that you were making was that in a definition, there's a relationship to power. And so you're in this room, so you're like you're artists or you're interested in art. And so you may be wanting to answer a question for yourself about like, how can I use what I love or what I'm good at to like make some change in this world? The pat answer is like into the narratives, but I think that the more relevant task before you is political education, self-political education. Because at the end of the day, like, I could tell you several stories about like art in my life. I mean, like I was in prison when I was 18, serving a life sentence, and then by the time I was 19, I was like, I'm gonna write my way out of prison. And I didn't say it because I thought that was super reasonable. It was just really, it was literally the only skill I had. Like I remember in elementary school, the teacher was like, holy shit, you can write. Like 15 years later or whatever, like I was like in a prison cell and was like, well, what are you gonna do? It's like, man, I remember when I was in 5th grade, man, this teacher said I can write, maybe I'll do that, right? And 21 years later, like I literally did that. Like it's a different story, but literally that's not a metaphor. I wrote my way out of prison. And so there's a lot of power in art, right? Like the narrative, like it's a really fucked up function of art, but like the narratives of oppression and white supremacy that we're talking about today were created by artists, right? Whether they call themselves artists or marketeers or whatever the fuck they were, like that's an art. Marketing is an art. Trust me, right? Go to Vegas if you don't believe me. Marketing is an art. And so as an artist, you're in the business of potentially developing a very strong power, right? And so when you're thinking about what you can do with this power, it's less about It's less about what you can do with the power and more about who you become as a person and like what you politically know so that you know what to use that power to do. Right? And so that's why we're talking about this right now, because I want you to, if you take anything else from this class, I want you to understand that the system of white supremacy exists because it has figured out how to self-replicate itself, and the only way to do that is to get all participants in the system to replicate it themselves, right? And so one of the things that I want you to be doing, as what Sadie has like pointed out here, is in a definition there is a relationship to power. So you have to, when you're hearing people talk about like when your people were talking about everything but the word black, it's loud, it's this, it's that, it's that. I mean, we do live in a place where you can't like be overtly racist, right? Like, and so there has to be a narrative to support a white supremacist structure or agenda or strategy or mechanism. And that narrative doesn't need to be something you're conscious is one such narrative. Like the whole nuclear family is one such narrative, and most people aren't aware that that's like a white supremacist narrative, mostly because they don't have to be, right? But they're still not aware, right? And so what you can do as an artist is be very aware of the relationship of definition and power. And what you have then as an artist is the ability to subvert power, to like make it destroy itself, or to crack open a seed so people can see a different definition. Excuse me. So an example of that is like a video of Lil Wayne, right? Which is a video, and so of course you're not listening to the words, you are looking at the images for the most part. It's a video, right? But it does fix you in a place that, you know, puts us in a position where we can maneuver to another question, to a wider question, and that is, video or not, whether it was in this room, or whether it's before in your life, before you saw a video, or whether it's you hear someone discussing rap, we can't acknowledge that people encounter rap and they don't engage it like they engage poetry. And let's talk about why. Oh, there's all these excuses why we don't, right? But like, why do we need to have a conversation about rap's redeeming value and separate the good from the bad? We don't do it in any other area of excellence.
Wow.
Like Alexander Hamilton, like if you are a white man in the 18th and the 1900s, you are a racist, right? But we don't feel the need to like unpack Alexander Hamilton's racism. We kind of take it, yeah, those were the times. And now, what about all this good shit he did? Right? We don't like unpack Abraham Lincoln. Like we actually have a narrative about Abraham Lincoln. It's about like, yeah, man, like he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Like this dude was against slavery. It was a political maneuver. What are you talking about? Like the South were using slaves to get more votes in the Senate and the House of Representatives. That's what Abraham Lincoln and the Union cared about. Not that black bodies were being commodified, because we're still commodifying black bodies today. But if you are not aware about the way that narratives perpetuate, like these systems and these dichotomies, this thing that my brothers in Artistic Ensemble talk about, like about a lot of injustices due to like social dichotomies, like who does it and who doesn't do it. Another example was like, I was in a gang. He would be like, man, that dude was in a gang, that's not cool. Like he was a criminal, he was doing this stuff. And he's like, look, a gang is not different from a police force. It's not different from a military force. But again, we talk about who's doing the acting, who has permission from power to kill people. The act itself isn't any different. Like murder is not a moral function, it's a power function. I don't have permission and power to kill people, so if I do it, it's murder. A police officer can shoot you in your car, you have done nothing, not even armed. And you can't even get a conviction. Not because juries don't want to the law will not let you convict them. The standard of evidence to convict a cop of murder is impossible to prove. Because all he has to do is say, I thought I was in danger. That's the standard of a justifiable shooting. I thought I was in danger. How you can't argue with someone thinking they're in danger or not?
Right.
That's the law. That's not like, a lawyer doesn't have to get up and convince a jury that that's right. That's the law. They tell the jury, if you believe that he believed he was in danger, he's innocent.
Unless you're not a cop.
Unless you're not a cop.
If you're not a cop,
Because
you're
again,
still in danger, you're going to prison.
the idea of murder is not a function of ethics, it's a function of power. And so, what you can do as an artist is understand that definitions like murder, like criminal, like gang member, like police officer, like hero, like patriot, right? All of these things that we have a definition for, it's in relation to a power structure, right? And you as an artist have the gift of subverting power structures. I feel like that's all I got. Go ahead.
When everything you just said was so deep, I think it's really important to also be aware that as an artist, you should have this awareness of how to subvert power, but also think about like it's so much more important to do good with that power because of so many people that have taken that power and done the complete opposite. Like before Hitler was Chancellor of Germany, he was rejected from art school. And when you mix a sadist with a rejected artist, you get the Holocaust and all this crazy shit that happens because someone got the power to influence others' minds and used that like the creativity and like the evil genius mechanism to do all this wrong. And
I think you're right. And I would say that's already happening, right? Like that's already happening. That is the world we live in, right? And so I would say that in thinking about what the right thing to do with your power, right? For me, what I feel like is the right thing for me to do with my power as an artist and as an organizer, just like as a human being in this world who has agency, is to one, subvert that power structure that already exists, and two, build something else. I feel like you suggested this in what you said, that like it isn't enough to dismantle the system that like we don't want, and it isn't enough just to like subvert the power structures that maintain systems of oppression. I'm coming to you in just a second. But we also have to build something else. Like I say all the time, it's like, man, white supremacy sucks. Like even old white men hate it. Everyone's miserable. Everyone's miserable and lonely as fuck, and ready to like, fuck, man, who's gonna stab you in the back and drag you down? Like, it's stressful. People are dying. They have like cortisone in their blood. It's not cool, right? I always say, like, if we build something else, my motherfuckers are just gonna jump ship. Because no one wants to be in it, but where else do they have to go? So yeah, you're right. Like we also like there's the dismantling, there's the warrior spirit, right? But there's also the creative spirit. There's also the mother, the earth, the growing of a new world. So yeah, it's a good point.
I'm a history buff. Really heavy. I did a lot of reading when I was in prison. So in 1521, the King of England had the Bible rewritten, changing the laws in the Bible that the people were in the part in the Bible where it says you give what belongs to Caesar. They're talking about giving it to the government, right? So a guy came from Germany and rewrote the Bible for them. He was an artist, right? He was poetry, songs, played the piano, but he rewrote the Bible, and that's the starting of the white supremacy. That's the starting of the Anglo-Saxon Protestant view on the world. And anybody who wasn't part of that, they wanted to make them obey them. So they rewrote religion. And Prince Machiavelli's book, The Prince's Solution, is about using religion and art and political statements to control the masses. And he wrote a whole book about it, right? That book has been used to form communism, socialism. Hitler used it. Mussolini used it, the Chinese government used it when they formed their version of communism, and the United States was founded on it. by the forefathers of this country. I said, I'm a history buff, and politics is a big thing I got involved in prison. I turned my bad politics to good politics, became a MAC member, and I'll try to change things that were going on.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, I was not. I was 21 years old and mad at the world.
I get that.
Yeah. And it took me 20 years to change.
So we have 45 minutes. I feel like you got the point about Lil Wayne, so we're not going to unpack his lines, and I'm not going to prove his poetry. So let's spend the next 40 minutes like talking. You can just asking questions. So,
20 minutes.
20 minutes, even better. I'm an open book. I was an artist in prison for 21 years. It was my primary means of organizing and building power for myself and the people around me. I think we did it like fairly effectively. It translated into a lot of different spheres, including like legislation and like helping get Senate bills passed that ultimately would have gotten me out of prison if the governor hadn't commuted my sentence and then like let me out of prison. And so as an artist, what do you want to know?
Hi. I actually, I remember last fall I took Professor Daniels and Sheena Hammerman's class, and you came to one of those classes, the Black Jewish Relations classes, and I'm just kind of curious to know where you stand from that point to this point in your perspective on all the things you're talking about and yourself as an artist, and just kind of, I'm curious to know about your journey because it's the second time I'm interacting with you.
Hard to say because I don't know what I said. Do you remember what I was talking about?
A lot of things. You kind of explained your story and more in depth on how you wrote yourself out of prison. You had your little microphone thing, talking into it. It was just like a lot of points. So a year ago.
I think that what might be possible is like I feel like one thing that I have been conscious of and trying to be more aware of is that like so my own personal story is like the perfect pull yourself up by your bootstrap story, which is like a very damaging narrative, right? When we're talking about shifting the systemic political structures that are like plaguing us. And so one of the things that has shifted for me is like trying to be aware of that and like name that like I can tell you an individual story, but don't like try to translate that into like a systemic answer, and nor don't confuse the personal with the systemic, right? Often like when we're having like conversations about racism, it's like a very common thing. It's like, you know, but I'm a good person, right? It's like, yeah, but like you're talking about a subjective experience. You're talking about the personal, and we're talking about the collective, and that's a very different thing. So trying to be more proactive about connecting my story, which is personal, which is real, which is like transformative, to the actual reality that like I live a really good life right now, and should not be the case that you should, one, have to spend 21 years in prison, and two, be me to have a good life. I think for like a very many reasons rooted in trauma. I was lucky in that one of the ways my trauma manifested was like perfectionism and a strive towards excellence that was just very unhealthy and very like should not be the norm for anyone, but it also saved my life. And that can't be the society that we're building. That in order to succeed in this world, you got to be a super person, right? I'd like to give the example of I know this dude, this guy, Mackinnon, and then like if you can get him in this class. Dude who's 21 is the most extraordinary 21-year-old man I've ever met in my life,
Yes.
right? And I don't just like he reminds me of me, except he never went to prison, right? Which is extraordinary. And we were like all sitting down, we were talking, like he just got out of foster care like maybe 4 weeks ago, right? And people kept asking him, like, how did you do it? Like, what's your secret sauce?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you made it, how come everyone else isn't making it, right? And so like the example that I like to give, an example that like I would like to give to this room for talking about the difference between the systemic and the personal is imagine an obstacle course, right? We all know what an obstacle course is, right? It's designed to be hard to get through. So like literally that's what an obstacle course is. Now let's elevate that to the conceptual level a little bit. Now imagine an obstacle course that's designed for 80% of the people never to make it through, right? That's imaginable. We can like think about that. And so you put me and Mackinnon in this obstacle course. I did not make it through. A lot of other people didn't make it through. We went to prison. Mackinnon made it through. A bunch of other people made it through. And they made it through for a host of reasons. Maybe they were smart. Maybe they knew somebody. Maybe someone invested in them. Maybe they kind of lucky break. Maybe they had a better education. It can be there's 1,000 different reasons why the 20 of 100 people made it through this obstacle course that was deliberately designed for 80% of the people not to get through. But the answers are irrelevant. The actual conversation we need to have here is like, this obstacle course was designed for 80% of the people not to make it through. Why are we talking about that? Who gives a shit why these 20 people made it through? Is this okay that we have designed this obstacle course designed for 80% of the people not to make it through? So that's one of the ways I try to like remove the whole personal pull yourself up when you're bootstrapped narrative that's easy to find in my story from like the realities of being in prison. Like I'm not here, I'm here now. Like 90% of the people serving life sentences in prison are in a place that's designed for them to never get out. And so like that's the problem, not how did 10 of you get out?
That's tough.
The other thing is that they create a doorway. The reason I got out of prison was not because all the work I did on myself. They changed 2 laws. Youth Offender Act, and elderly parole. The door's only going to be open so long, they're going to slam it and go right back to what they used to do. And that's the only reason I got out. Because like you said, it was designed, I think 80 is a very low term number. It should be more like 99%, not to ever get out. And it's designed also that the guys on the lower levels will come back. And eventually, laws in California become the life and never get out.
You know, I'm just curious, man. Like first of all, like I shouldn't feel impressed, but I am impressed because like these conversations don't happen, you know. And I've always been like that kind of person that gets pointed out, like you're special. You know, you're not like the rest of them. And that's a horrible narrative too, that plays into another type of stereotype. But my question is, what type of literature, what help, like, how can if I'm thinking that I want to be on this pathway to understand power and narrative beyond just reading surface information, because a lot of that critical stuff that we read really talks about the surface. I mean, it talks about recidivism and what how we need to change the system to make it better. But no one talks about that obstacle course.
I haven't read that anywhere. I don't think there's a lot of literature on it. I mean, if you consider the published, I mean, like, you know, who publishes books? It's like, it's the publishing industry, right? Like, you know? So there's not like a lot of literature out there like that. I would say that like for instance, like Adrienne Marie Brown's, like anything she writes, I would recommend reading it. Adrienne Marie Brown, like Emergent Strategy. I feel like, I remember when I read Emergent Strategy, right, like my partner sent it to me when I was in prison, and it was like a lot of it that resonated with me because it was shit like I've been living for the last 21 years. It's like shit, it took me, like I wish I would have had a book a long time ago, but I was like, you know, it was like shit I was learning to be true, things that like, you know, old men in prison had taught me, and like things that I learned, like being a writer. It was like, I'm gonna like write in prison, but I don't know how to write, so I gotta start somewhere. So like, you know, the elements of style, but I don't have any money, so I can't have a book. So I was like, hey man, let me borrow for 2 days. I copy it down my hand, and like, I started copying books down my hand, and like, and so I learned this. She has this idea called the next elegant step, and like my whole writing career was like the next elegant step, because I started like as a high school dropout, right, and like never went back. I didn't get a college degree of anything, but like I had to figure out the next step to get there until I got there. So Adrienne Marie Brown, definitely. I think I always recommend this dude, but he's super dense. Super dense. Nelson Maldonado Torres. Let me see if I pull up. Okay. He writes on the coloniality of being, right? I just feel like that's the best. It's like the best description that I've heard of like what we're actually up against with like white supremacy, and it being like an imagination problem, and like he has a statement, it's like, hey, since colonialism, there hasn't been another structure of power. So all of our structures of power are colonialist. Like even us who are trying to like dismantle colonialism, we're drawing on colonialism to do it. And that's why I love Adrienne Marie Brown, because she recognizes the need to create a new imagination. And like I feel like for me, those two authors like together, like in sync, like I feel like they're like a Bible. Let me see. Look at all my past stuff, please. There it goes. On the coloniality of being, what's his name? Nelson Maldonado Torres. That dude is a beast. But I warn you, it's dense. It's very dense, but it's brilliant. Other writers,
Freire, what'd you say? Freire, Paulo Freire, Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed? No.
Oh, Fanon. It's interesting read, but I feel like it's like a description more than it's like it's very like trying to be scientific, and it's like more. It's like again that dynamic that perpetuates white supremacy, that which constitutes quality, that which constitutes scholarship, like divorces us from the actual things that would actually get us to the knowledge places that we need to do a thing, right? I'm discovering that, like just filing taxes. I'm filing taxes for my nonprofit, and I'm like, holy shit. Now I know why executive directors and people are always complaining about nonprofit people doing all this shit that like feels super white supremacist. Like the tax code is set up to make them behave that way. I'm literally filling out these tax papers proving I'm not defrauding the government. And the way that I'm proving that I'm just not, I have to like lay out these program goals, and it's by expense. So if you're not spending any money, you're not doing anything, right? And so it's like, I'm like, what in the fuck? Right? Right? And so like, yeah, so like, Fanon, it's a very academic work, and that's its problem, but I feel like it has a very important description of colonialization and the resistance of colonialization that maybe I don't know if he knows he flagged it or not, but like if you're just watching it and looking at it, it's like this idea of like switching places. It's like revolution is switching places, which is not revolution, right? And that's about the imagination problem. That's what Maldonado was talking about when he's saying, like, we keep drawing on structures of colonialism to try to overthrow colonialism. That's never going to work. You can't, another thing is you can't dismantle the master's house with his own tools. That's a good one. And so, like, those are two, and like, this is also, I would also say, Audre Lorde's work has some great ideas, but I would say fundamentally what you want to do is you want to find the most marginalized people and read their work. So, like, you want to read the work of like queer writers, transgender writers, women of color, like that's who, like, find that work. Those are the people who have the experience closest to understanding power through experience and not through like academic philosophy, and can, in the best cases, can articulate and tell you and equip you with the tools to identify the structures of the power dynamics you're trying to engage with.
Emile, we love you, man. How can we be in touch with you? How can we get involved in some of the things you're involved with? If you send me stuff, because there are other people in the class thinking of what they can do to be involved in some of the stuff that's happening around. So if you share information, we'll make it available on site so that people can think about what's the next step, what's the next elegant move, what's the next elegant move.
Absolutely.
Thank you, brother. Great. I feel like this. I don't want to leave, but I'm with you, man.
I'm sitting down.
Thank you all for your attention. Wednesday is our artistic day. We have more speakers coming in. I want you guys to think about the Omega Boys Club and look it up, because we got Jack Jackal coming in with Corey, and they're local, and their mission is to get youth out of at-risk neighborhoods and thinking about what it could be if they were in college. And of course, we know that the answer is more complicated than that. But however, this is what this group is doing. We'll need to hear from them. Thank you. Emile, we love you, and you are always welcome in our community. Thank you so much.